Streaming from Oklahoma's own digital studio, this is Beyond the Bell, brought to you by the Oklahoma Education Impact Initiative.
Here's the big question. How can Oklahoma go from being one of the worst states in the nation for education to one of the best? It's no secret Oklahoma's public education ranking is dismal. One of the latest studies from WalletHub, we've talked about it here, ranks Oklahoma the worst in the country, only better than New Mexico. Welcome to our Beyond the Bell video podcast brought to you by the Oklahoma Education Impact Initiative. I am your host for the day, Amanda Taylor. All right, part of our state's poor ranking comes from reading scores. Last year, take a look, Oklahoma students ranked 47th in fourth grade reading on the National Assessment of Educational Progress standardized tests. And that really is the gold standard. That's kind of the nation's report card. Look at eighth grade reading levels. The state ranked 48th, and the numbers are roughly the same for math scores in those grades. So we are going to go beyond the stats to find out why our students are falling behind on reading. To get to the root of the problem, we are bringing in nationally recognized education expert Rhonda Baker. Rhonda, we appreciate you being here. A little bit about Rhonda first. She brings 20 years of classroom experience at the middle, high, and collegiate levels. She served in the House of Representatives from 2016 to 2024 and was chairwoman of the Common Education Committee for 7 of her 8 years in office. Rhonda has also received national recognition for her work in education policy. She's chaired the Education Committee of the Southern Legislative Conference and served as vice chair of the Southern Regional Education Board's Legislative Advisory Council. And she's also a parent. She has 3 grandsons, and like me, we want to see our children succeed. So this is such an important conversation. We're so glad you're with us. Mention the national report card, and I don't know if it's surprising, but it's definitely concerning that Oklahoma, since the 90s, we've ranked below the national average on reading.
We have. Yeah.
Okay, tell me, there's got to be things that we've tried over the years.
We have tried many things, and here is part of Oklahoma's problem. We try them, and if they don't work immediately, we try to find something else, and we step away from what we had previously tried. Other states that have had success, they stay the course. Oklahoma has to stay the course.
So do you feel like we're just not giving those things long enough to work?
Correct.
And what type of things have we tried in the past?
Okay, so originally in the 90s, of course, there was the Reading Sufficiency Act. In that act, there were initiatives that we have tried since. Part of that included retention, third grade retention, which you're going to hear a lot about this legislative session. There was in the area about 2012, as Superintendent Janet Barisi had come up with a reading plan. It was touted as a very great plan. Other states were starting to do the same thing. It incorporated literacy coaches, intensive tutoring, and it also did have a third grade retention piece to that. Now, keep in mind, these are similar things that Mississippi has done, which we can talk about later with the Mississippi Miracle, but the legislature passed all of that. So that was passed in 2012. In 2014, when third grade retention came into place, there was a panic. There were about 7,900 students that really should have been probably held back. Parents were very upset about that.
Well, yeah, they don't want their kid being held back. Sure.
Correct, yeah. The school districts were concerned about what's the plan, what do I do now when I have an overload of students that are going to be held back into third grade. So there was an effort then at that time with the legislature to roll some of that back. So that initiative was stopped. There are many people today that believe that had we have kept third grade retention in place, we may not be where we're at. I'm not saying that third grade retention is the answer, certainly, but that was a component that we did roll back. Here's another thing that
Can we talk really quick though, about the third grade retention? Because some of us don't understand why that was so important. Is third grade, is that the tipping point between getting it and then really falling behind as you move on?
Yeah, so most educators know that between kindergarten and third grade, you're learning to read. From 3rd grade on, you are reading to learn. And if you can't read and comprehend, what you have read, then you're going to struggle to learn. Yeah.
And that would affect you basically the rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
Your education. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, here's something else that was done back in 2012. There were literacy coaches that were put into place. So under Superintendent Barisi, those literacy coaches were trained. They were deployed across the state. That had just kind of gotten started. And then we started having the cuts to education. So that was when our state was really going into a free fall when it came to our budget. Oil prices had declined. We were highly reliant upon that funding for our state. And so there were hard decisions that had to be made and budget cuts that were taking place, and education was part of that. So those literacy coaches were cut. Initiatives on intensive tutoring were cut. And so things were taken back to the bare bones of, how a state could function.
So the kids, not only were they not getting a chance to do the year before, I know that's controversial, but then also they weren't given the extra help because some of those literacy coaches were taken away.
Those literacy coaches were taken away.
Did we see any inkling that was working, at least the coaching part or the extra tutoring?
When you talk to people in the education system, there were a lot of people that said, we just were getting started. We did not have the data at that time to see that it was working efficiently or not. But again, if we want to compare ourselves to what other states have done, they've implemented the literacy coaches and they have not strayed from that. So yeah, our economic downfall at that time was really disastrous for our education policy.
Did we ever get back on track after that?
In 2016, I was straight out of the classroom. I ran for House of Representatives then. And what I can tell you is it was a really dire time in education. Many of the teachers that I had taught with were retiring. There were some that were like, I can't do this anymore. They weren't, our classroom sizes were getting larger. There were, of course, talks about, they weren't getting their step increases. I mean, there was a lot of talk about teacher pay at that time. And then, of course, you may remember back in 2017, we had the teacher walkout.
Right.
So, these are things that as a legislative body, we were having to deal with the immense problems that had taken over, that took our eyes off of what is best for kids at this point. We were trying to deal with teacher shortages, teacher walkouts, how are we going to get funding back into education? And so those were the basic things that we were fighting to make sure that we could protect.
Do you feel like reading kind of took a backseat then to all of that?
I think that everyone had it top of mind, but I'm not certain that that was the number one priority. The number one priority, and it still is a priority, of course, student outcomes and achievement are the number one priority, but you've got to have a high quality teacher in front of that child. In Oklahoma, we have so many teachers that, thank goodness, they have stepped up and are willing to do the work, and we're so thankful for them. But many of them come to our classrooms through an alternative route. You will hear often about emergency certifications and so forth. So these are teachers that we have to take, and thank goodness that they're willing to be in our classrooms, but we've got to put trainings around them, supports around them, mentors, and make sure that they are getting the training they need so they can pass it on to our children.
So they know what to do.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit, and you mentioned the Mississippi Miracle. People in education will know about the Mississippi Miracle. It is an incredible turnaround in their educational success. It has been recognized as one of the fastest improving states in educational outcomes in the country. Rhonda, how they do it?
Well, back in about, 2000, the early 2000s, and I'm not going to know the exact year, but they were tired of being last in every category. And I'm just going to say in Oklahoma, we used to always joke that we may be low, but we're not Mississippi. Well, they really took that to heart because other states were saying it as well. They decided that they were going to come up with a strategic plan and they were going to stick with it. Now, when I talked about Oklahoma has started things and we've pulled back, Mississippi did not. So they had a plan that they were going to make sure that all of their teachers were trained in the science of reading. Now, the science of reading, strong phonics, has been debate in other states. Oklahoma has been one, whether the science of reading is really the best program. But if you look at the states that have implemented science of reading and have required their teachers to take it, they've had fantastic results. So teachers...
That's just incredible. So you're basically telling me that they just went back to the basics.
The basics, yes.
Okay, and it was 2005. They were ranked last.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. So they started that. They did intensive supports. So when I say intensive supports, tutoring one-on-one with the children that really were struggling with that. So as we all know, when you have smaller class sizes and students are getting more of that one-on-one attention, you're getting better results. So they took those children, intensive tutoring. The legislative body then was brought in. So that is your governor, the legislature, House and Senate, the state superintendent, and the state school board members. And they all were given the strategic plan. And that strategic plan was to be followed. And
everybody was on board.
Everyone was on board. They didn't stray from the strategic plan, and they added the funding in that needed to be there.
That's what I was going to ask you next, because you talk about the reading tutors coming in or the reading specialists, and are they just training the teachers to do that job? Are they bringing in extra help?
They are going into the schools, and the way that it's intended to be is that they will go in and they will work with the schools that need the most help and direction.
Other than the teachers, other specialists.
Correct.
Okay.
And so you work with the team, you help the students, you help, model how the one-on-one work would be. So we have in Oklahoma, we have 10 literacy coaches. Now keep in mind.
In all of Oklahoma?
In all of Oklahoma, and they are sent out regionally. So when my last year in the legislature, I helped pass the Strong Readers Act with Senator Adam Pugh, and that was a component of the Strong Readers Act. We would have literacy coaches that would be deployed. Again, this is something that Superintendent Barisi had started, and then that was cut from education back then. So we brought it back. We knew that the funding that we had would only count, we could only get 10, but we did that. Now, that was in 23, so it has taken some time to get these literacy coaches hired, to get them trained, and then deployed. So I think it's interesting. You look at me and you go, for the whole state, and I'm saying, yeah, that was what we could afford at the time, but keep in mind, Mississippi has about 60.
Okay.
So
I was thinking
have.
we need more.
Oh, yeah.
10 just sounds like they might be able to help a couple of students.
Right. So we do need more. That is something that it was set on a 3-year pilot. It did allow the State Department to start deploying these literacy coaches out once they have been trained, and then see what was working, what's not, so they could tweak it. And then hopefully by that 3rd year, when the program is over, they could really make some strong recommendations to the legislature about, this is what we need in statute. We wanted them to have the flexibility to be able to say, okay, this is what we've got to do. How did it work? Get some data and so forth. We hope the legislative body will continue to see the value, going and touring other states and talking to other education professionals and legislative leaders. Those literacy coaches are key. We have to continue to do that.
Have you seen it make a difference? Like in a specific student, like you've seen them struggle, and then the coach comes in, they work with them one-on-one or in a group?
Well, the coach is more to help the teachers, so that they can learn the proper, specifics that will work with the students. So
kind of back to the basics, the phonics.
Yeah,
so that's one thing Mississippi is doing, is they're going back to the basics and teaching kids to sound out the words so that they can learn. Anything else that Mississippi is doing that we're looking at them saying, hey, we need to be adopting that as well?
You know, I think that more than anything, Mississippi has created this pathway that, okay, we have to have supports. The key word is support. These children that can't read, it's not like if you continue to stick a book in front of them, they're eventually going to get it. I mean, there have to be intensive supports in place. Now, the one thing, and again, we'll talk about this quite a bit this year, is third grade retention. They do have that in place.
That's in place in Mississippi?
In Mississippi.
Is it in place here in Oklahoma?
No.
Okay.
So, you know, that was in place again under Superintendent Barisi. As I said, you know, they had the 1 year and then all of those students were going to be held back. It was a large number of them. Here's where Oklahoma did not do what Mississippi did. Mississippi made sure there was a pathway. All of these supports were in place. All of these specific metrics had to, you know, make sure that they were in place before a child was retained. In Oklahoma, we didn't have all of that. We just had retention. You know,
So you have to make sure that they go through certain help, getting the tutoring.
Yes.
Then if they go through all that, then they would get held back in Mississippi.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a pathway toward that. The conversation too in other states has really changed to, is third grade really the year that you need to be retaining, or do we move it forward a little bit? Is it first grade, maybe second grade? Maybe you need to be having those conversations then. So I think those are some things that we would have to look at. But again, you know, third grade retention in and of itself has not been the key component to success. It's a piece of the puzzle, but those supports, that is what has really changed. And again, you have to have education leaders that will stay the course with the strategic plan, and they did. Look at what Oklahoma has been through. We have been through a lot of trauma in our education system. We've had a State Department that was basically at war with our education leaders. There was not a lot of leadership that was coming out of there that dealt with student outcomes. Yeah. We were dealing with a whole lot of other strong rhetoric that really did not move the needle on our students. We have to get back to, we work together, we stay the course, we do what's best for kids, and we don't deviate from it. We've got enough states that have done this that we can just look at them and see what they've done and see their results to say we can do it too. And many of these states are states that are similar to our demographic.
Yeah,
so,
if Mississippi can do it, Oklahoma can definitely do it. So I had written down in my notes while looking this up is that they are now tied for 6th in education in the country. That was in 2024. And then among the low income students, they're ranked number one. So if they can do it, then we can do it as well. Also, it was interesting you mentioned about rhetoric. Lyndall Fields, who's our new state superintendent, he says literacy is a gift that unlocks the future for a child. It opens the doors to opportunity, confidence, and lifelong learning. So you have that from the top, and maybe now it will trickle down as well. Yeah. Let's go back to the retention issue, because I got to know, Rhonda, is this one of those things that the kids do better because they're held back, or is it they do better because then they're flagged and they say, okay, we need that reading specialist? Like if you just gave them the reading specialist, would they not need that retention then?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there certainly is some data that would show you give them the intensive supports and you put them in front of a reading specialist, someone that's trained in the science of reading, that they probably aren't going to need the retention. In Mississippi, even though that third grade retention piece is in place, they're finding they don't have to retain a lot. So, you know, it is something that certainly we'll have to dive into. But, you know, back to what didn't work in the beginning as well. parents were very concerned about their child and what was going to take place with them emotionally, to be held back, the stigma with it.
Yeah.
So there was a parent piece that was put into place where, parents had to be part of a committee to determine whether that third grade retention was going to take place. A lot of parents at that time did not want their child to be held back. I don't know if things would change now, but I do think what we have to make sure is we are talking about what we can do to support that child in their reading before we ever talk about the retention piece. Are we supportive of it if it's going to help that child? Absolutely. But you got to have those supports in place.
As a parent, I don't want to find out either in third grade that my child has to be held back. It's like I almost want to know before then so you can hopefully get that intervention so that you don't have to deal with maybe the other issues that come with holding the child back.
Correct. Yeah. And in the Strong Readers Act, which is what was passed in 23, there is a portion of it that has every student that the teacher determines is struggling with reading, they will have an individualized reading plan. And so that's something that the parent can see and is part of. And then there are, specific steps in place to help that child. The parent will help their child as well. But there have to be milestones that are made. But I think that's so important. Every child learns differently. Every child has different needs. And so that individualized reading plan will be helpful as well. But again, Amanda, we got to stay the course. We can't have our legislative body just go in and go, okay, this may not be working. What can we do next? Let's see it through. Let's give it some time.
So what do you think we're going to see this upcoming year with education?
Yeah, I think the third grade retention is going to be probably your biggest conversation.
You think it's going to be brought back?
Yes. Yes. The legislative body is already talking about it. They've been doing some studies on reading, and especially the Mississippi Miracle. If you go back and you study the Mississippi Miracle, just to talk about that for one more minute, the key component, they said, is it really wasn't a miracle. It was just a marathon. We stuck to it. I am very thankful that the legislature is really taking that serious to say, okay, what are they doing? And I do think they understand we do have to stay the course, but it is going to take everyone staying the course, the governor, the superintendent, whoever that may be in the future, the school board. They all have to be very familiar with the plan, understand it, so that we're not all just coming up with a new idea and trying to promote that.
Let's do what works.
Yeah.
I got to talk too, because Rhonda is part of the city chamber, and this is important. I was like, what's education and the city chamber doing together? But this is really important to bringing businesses here to Oklahoma.
It is. And, that's why I was recruited to come to the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber. Let me brag about our city for a minute. We are doing such amazing things, and I am so thankful to our business leaders that 30 years ago had come up with this plan of we've got to make sure that we are supporting our city and revitalizing it. And all of the MAPS programs have been fantastic. But here's what we also know. Other cities are looking at us. We're dynamic. They are amazed with what we're doing. And then companies are wanting to leave cities, and they're looking to Oklahoma City like, this place is really dynamic and it's thriving. What about Oklahoma City? What about Oklahoma? And then they start looking at our rankings and our workforce pipeline and those things, and then they pause and they question, okay, but if I live in the Oklahoma City region, or if I move to Oklahoma, will my student have an opportunity to do well? And so the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber is all on board with making sure we lift up education in this region. We are here to say, you know what, business leaders, we're going to come together with our education leaders. We're going to talk. We're going to no longer be siloed with, education is your problem and business is my problem. We all are in this together, and we can do this work. But we have to be listening to what each other needs. And I will say the conversations are different now than they were even just a few years ago. In Oklahoma City, I will tell you that the education leaders around here are saying, you know what, this is our call to action. We have to teach. We have to put everything else aside, and we have to focus only on the kids. And it shouldn't be what's comfortable for adults. It is now student-centered. And for a long time, everything was kind of centered around what's best for the adults in the room. That conversation has changed. And so I'm proud of that.
And getting everybody on board too, everybody behind what needs to happen.
Yes.
All right, so Rhonda, give us a little bit of hope for anybody that's discouraged by the Oklahoma rankings that we've been talking about for this past year.
You know, we talk so much about the Oklahoma standard, and there is so many great things that are taking place. As educators, we don't really market the great things that we do. There are great things that are taking place, so I do want to point that out. Our rankings have to improve. And I'll tell you, there's so much acknowledgement that, we don't like 50th, and people really are wanting a change. And that includes people in the education area. They know it's not working, they're looking for help. People are starting to collaborate more than ever, and we just have to make sure that that collaboration continues and we do what we know works, and we quit trying to reinvent the wheel, and we quit trying to have one person be the one that's going to solve it all. We solve it together. So no more fighting against each other. It has to be all of us saying, we can do this. Parents working with the teachers working with their administrators saying, how can I help alleviate the problems that are taking place in our classrooms so that our teachers actually can teach. The business leaders coming together and saying, you know, what can we do? Can we support the school districts by allowing our employees some time to go to a parent-teacher conference so they become more involved? We all can do this. We all have a part to play. And the conversations are certainly moving toward that direction. So that's a positive.
Rhonda, this could be the turning point.
I hope so.
This could really be the turning point. We all hope so. Any final thoughts?
You know, don't give up on our kids. Our kids are worth it. As you said, you have children. I have grandchildren now, and I'm in it for this to be a positive experience for all of them so that they can grow up and they can say, you know, Oklahoma City was transformed, our education system was transformed, but we stay the course and we do what we know works.
Not going to happen overnight, but
that's right.
This is the turning point.
I hope.
Rhonda Baker, thank you
so
much
welcome
for being part of this conversation, for your perspective and going beyond the stats as well. And thank you so much for joining our video podcast produced from Griffin Media Studios, brought to you by the Oklahoma Education Impact Initiative. We'll see you next time, Beyond the Bell.